Jay Scherr.
Jay Scherr.
Jay Scherr.
Jay Scherr,
business consultant.
Jay Scherr.
Jay Scherr Business Consulting.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jay Scherr with Jay Scherr Business Consulting. We build solid foundations for service-based businesses to grow and scale and achieve the results and success they deserve. And you have joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Are you burdened by busy work? Are you the bottleneck in your business? Are you stressed out and maybe looking for a better way? Well, on today's episode, we talk about heart-based businesses, finding smarter strategies and systems for working with joy and ease, and more. Our guest is an international keynote speaker, the co-creator of Google's acclaimed career guru coaching program, a best-selling author of 3 books, including her latest, Free Time, and is the host of not one, but 2 popular podcasts with over 1 million downloads combined. She's given keynotes and workshops at top companies and universities, including Google, Microsoft, Stanford, Yale, and MIT. And she loves helping people move from friction to flow through smarter systems. Please welcome the woman who's helping us simplify and streamline for less stress and more ease, the amazing Jenny Blake. Jenny, thank you so much for being here. It is great to see you.
Wow. I feel like if I can just play that intro when I get up out of bed in the morning, I won't even need my coffee. Thank you. I love you. I haven't pulled in all the places I've spoken in a while. And it's so funny hearing it read out loud. It's like, oh yeah, all the places I didn't get in for college. Now it's always fun to go back and say, you didn't want me then, but you want me here now. So that's the only redeeming thing about doing, not the only, one of the redeeming things about doing those speaking gigs.
I love that. It's always, it's important that we celebrate how far we've come. I look back not only in my own career, but people that I work with, and too often we get caught up in what we haven't done or how far we have to go versus celebrating all the amazing things that you have done. So I always love, when you hear someone's accomplishments, it's great to think about it, right? It's great to realize what you have done and how much progress you have made.
That's so true. Yes. And then I love that Garth Brooks song about unanswered prayers. From the first time I heard it, I never forgot it. And the saying that if something is not happening, whether you believe in God, the universe, Cosmo, that it's the universe saying, no, not yet, or not good enough for you. And even in the example I just gave, it's like, okay, all those IVs, not yet, but one day you will be in these rooms. Not that it matters. Not that that's what success is. The word success, I think, is so personal and almost meaningless at a macro level. But it is so interesting to just look at the cosmic timing of our lives. And as you said, celebrate all the good that is there.
So true. And so beautifully stated as well. That's why one of the reasons why I was so excited to have this conversation with you, and especially after reading Free Time, it just reinforced again that you've got such a gift, and thank goodness that you brought that book to life and that you continue to produce amazing content. And we're going to be digging into quite a bit there during the conversation. So let's jump right in. I would love to find out from you what your favorite trait is about yourself.
Oh my gosh. Now you're making me blush. Let's see. Favorite trait about myself. It kind of is what gave me the courage to write this book, because I was not feeling like I was necessarily qualified to write a book on business systems because I'm not a cajillionaire. But my favorite trait is that I love learning new software. I absolutely love it. It's like playing with Legos to just learn a system and create automations, whether it's Zapier or Notion or the thing that is yet to be invented. I'm tiptoeing around blockchain stuff. I know nothing about it, but I can feel this magnet. So I think the thing that I love is I'm willing to traverse those learning curves and figure out new tech. I'm never the pioneer. I'm not the first one to any service, whether it's blogging or podcasting, but I'm usually on the early side because I just find tech so exciting. So I'll go with that as my number one trait.
Perfect. So Dory Clark shared with me the other day that her favorite trait of yours, and I'm pulling this up so I make sure I get it exactly as she said, she loves your warmth and generosity. Those two stand out primarily on a personal level. And then, of course, she also mentioned that professionally, she admires your extreme level of systematic thinking.
I just love, thank you for doing that. And Dory is one of the most generous people that I know and such a connector to what you asked her. You know, my husband said it to me. He said, "You're love and systems." And when he gave me that little formula, love and systems, later on, I tacked equals freedom. And right there on your shirt, you have the words flow and love and waves with little hearts in them. It's just some of my favorite concepts that I really think there's so much in the business world about money and metrics. But if we can operate with joy and love and flow and ease, what would be possible in the world? And of course, bolstered by smarter systems. But between Dory and Michael, my husband, they actually were both very, very influential in helping me kind of see the gifts and then double down on love and systems. So I'm very grateful to them both, and to you, Jay, for kind of pulling that out right at the start. What a gift.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And, you know, it goes to that saying that we attract who we are. So, you know, as I was reading your book and as I consume your content and think about customers and who we want to serve and do good with in this world, we tend to attract people that are like us. So it doesn't surprise me that in your case with your husband, Michael, and I want to talk about Michael here in just a couple of minutes, and also Dory and many others that are part of your world, you look around the people that you're surrounded by and they're good people, right? They're good people who bring goodness into the world, who do good things for the right reasons. And that's who you attract. And there's a reason for that. That just doesn't happen. There is intentionality behind that.
There was a point about 5 years ago now, but I started to put who I was looking for on my website copy for different programs. Like I have a private community for business owners. And I started to very explicitly say, I'm looking for generous, heart-based business owners. And the word generous, like, do not pass go. If you're not a generous person, I actually say there's one bullet point that says, if you're a taker and you're going to join the community looking for what you can take and how much value you can extract, this isn't for you. But if you're generous, if you're a giver and you're creative and you love exchanging ideas and feedback with people, keep reading. And that felt risky at the time for some reason. Even this term heart-based business, I was worried, oh, am I going to turn people off? They're going to think, oh, it's too mushy. But then it's like, I actually want to turn those people off. If somebody is so allergic to the phrase heart-based business, there's no way we're going to be a fit to do anything together. They're going to hate my podcast. They're going to hate my vibe. You know, I realize I'm actually not going to be missing out on too much if I somehow offend those people. Not that there's anything wrong with their approach to business, but I realize it's not a bad thing. And since doing that and actually raising the prices of things, I started to attract, just as you said, Jay, like the most incredible, accomplished, generous, smart, creative people. And it's only been a gift being more explicit about those values on my site and everywhere else.
Yeah, that's so good. There was a newsletter that I put out a week ago, and the quote that I started out with was Seth Godin's quote that not everyone is your customer. And this part of the conversation just reminds me of that when we really spend time to understand and define who we want to work with, who are the people that we enjoy and want to spend time with. And when we're clear on that, it makes doing business, it makes creating so much more rich and fulfilling. And we're not going to attract everyone to our business. the reality is we can't serve everyone anyway. So if we're going to work with the people that we truly want to work with, let's make sure that it's people that we value and that we love and that we really enjoy spending time with. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think we all know that feeling of certain clients. You actually like look forward to the phone call. It's like, oh, yay, I get to talk to Jay today. And then there will be other clients along the road or along the path where you go, oh, shoot, that call's on my calendar. And that is interesting information. In the book, I talk about this gauge of friction versus flow. And I think that applies to so many things, including the relationships in our life. And even what I've noticed is even if you can't explain why there's friction, because we all have a radar about people and our spidey sense, as some people call it, you might not have a logical reason that a certain client or a colleague makes you feel weird. And that's okay. It still doesn't mean you need to work with them. So I'm big on intuition in business. And it's so funny because there's a lot of business books that say, don't trust your intuition. That's going to get you lost in the woods and you'll die. But intuition is an amalgamation of thousands of data points. They're just operating in our subconscious.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm right there with you on that point. So I would love it if we could wind the clock back a little bit, and with your way of being able to look at systemizing things and putting processes in place and just optimizing for efficiency. Are there examples that you can point to from your youth where you just knew that there was something about the way that you looked at the world that made you come alive, that made you look at things and think to yourself, there's got to be a better way?
It's funny you asked that. I always was creating things and creating little businesses, which is funny because in my 20s, I lost confidence. I never thought I could be a business owner or an entrepreneur, that I was just a good student and a good team player, but not qualified. When I did look back at my childhood, I mean, even I started a babysitting business when I was 11, Babysitters Inc. Our motto was we're right on the ball point. So I even loved puns back then. I created this binder for parents to fill out worksheets about their kid, like all their emergency info. And then after I would babysit, I would fill out a worksheet that I created about what we did. What did that child like to play with? What games did we do? And it's just so funny looking back because that was my first manager manual. And that was my first attempt at remembering information so that I was smarter the next time that I showed up at their house to work with their kid. And what on earth is an 11-year-old doing babysitting? I'm not really sure. Like if I were a parent, I don't know that I would entrust my kids to 11 or 12-year-old anymore. But I look back at that babysitting binder and how much fun I had. To this day, I have fun creating little assets for the business. Like I created, we do, some of you will be watching this on video, but I have all these pins that I created just when I was procrastinating, waiting for the books to come off the printer because they were 4 months delayed. And so I've always enjoyed about business. It feels like playing a game. Like, oh, we get to like make up these business cards and then look fancy and create swag and all these things that to me are just, I never really played, I don't know, house or doctor. I was always playing business. So yeah, that's my love of just playing the game of it. And those are the parts I really enjoy to this day.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I think it's great when you are self-aware and that you recognize those things that really bring you just so much energy and joy and excitement, because we're all different, right? I mean, you enjoy that aspect of it. Somebody else who's sitting next to you is like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this part.
Or they'll look and go, how did you create all that stuff? And I'm like, oh man, that's what I did. I was sitting there watching TV, like procrastinating, and I'll build things in Canva or whatever. So it's true. It's like, I love my friend Neil Pasricha calls it the Saturday morning test. What is the thing that you love to do when it doesn't feel like an obligation and it feels like your time is your own? What would you choose to do?
It's a good question we should all be asking ourselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah, love that one. So what influence did both your mother and your father provide you? What were some of the lessons that you learned about just living giving, contributing, and what were some of those things that shaped who you are today? And when we get into free time, obviously you dedicate this book to your
Mhm.
father, Daddy-O,
Yeah,
also
Daddy-O.
known as. So share a little bit about your parents and some of those lessons that you learned from them.
They are both architects. My dad's an architect, and he, for about 30 years, had his own business. He was working when I was young, he worked within organizations. And then my mom is a landscape architect, and she has been now at Stanford, working on the Stanford campus for over 20 years. So I saw not only were they both working full time, but they were also in these kind of creative but structured professions. My friend Laura, who helps people find their zone of genius, Laura Garnett, she actually helped me put words that what I am is an idea architect or a freedom architect. And so I had never connected the dots between having architect parents and then what I do, because I'm more conceptual, the world of ideas. I'm not creating buildings or anything. I also saw my mom, really kind of rose and is so strong as a leader and delegating and having her team and working within a large organization like Stanford. And then my dad was doing his own thing, running his own business with maybe his own delightfully tiny team, but with the ambition to stay free to do his writing, songwriting, painting. He's been a lifelong painter and artist. So it's kind of cool to have that balance. Like my mom would tell me, work is work. You don't have to be so passionate about it. It's work. And then my dad would be like tinkering and writing songs and moving to Nashville to pursue songwriting, after he transitioned out of full-time architecture. So I think that blend really helped me, because I guess it goes back to the love and systems, like just creative, but with enough structure in place to support the more free form creative aspects.
It's really an interesting combination. So when you think about those two influences, do you find that one pulls you more than the other? And if so, what do you have to do at times maybe to counterbalance that?
Well, I opened the book with a Khalil Gibran quote: "Work is love made visible." And I do think that in equal measure, both of my parents work a lot, and not even in a bad way. It's just that work is how they are in the world, how they express themselves to this day. Like both of them could be retired. And they're divorced. They got divorced when I was young, but they could theoretically like kick back and go into some kind of retirement mode, and yet they don't want to. They keep working. And so that I feel similarly. Work is like oxygen for me, and I don't mean it in a workaholic sense, but I just truly feel my purpose for existing on the planet is to create things one to many that are helpful for people. And the part about balancing out, I mean, I I don't know. I think, it's interesting with free time, just being on the other side of the launch. I'm always still asking, how can I, that question I share in the book, how can I earn twice as much in half the time with joy and ease while serving the highest good? I still want to do less in my business. And yet I'm at a real transitional moment financially because I invested a lot in this new direction where gotta get there's like a giant business 747 that's like approaching the ground, like the nose is headed the wrong direction. And I need to really turn it around at the 11th hour. And I don't mind that level of risk. And that was on purpose, kind of like post-pandemic, go all in now or never, like we get one life feeling about this new direction. So I'm still holding an inquiry around how can I earn really abundantly, but not do all the things. I want to keep doing less and less and less and just have the books, the podcast, and my community. I do some corporate speaking and licensing, but that's more hit or miss. So I'm just trying to find that sweet spot of really abundant revenue with really abundant time.
So what are the most difficult decisions that you have to make as you are trying to figure out how to create more abundance of time for yourself? So what are some of
Well,
those big challenges and the really tough conversations you have to have with yourself?
For example, I went to coach training in 2008. And as you mentioned in my bio, I helped build a global coaching program for Google that's still in place today. Coaching was my bread and butter, easy income for 10 years. Like I always had enough clients with writing the books this is my third book. There were always people who were interested to work with me, and I could charge a pretty healthy rate. But at some point, I just realized that what I was doing was behind the paywall, like in these one-on-one conversations. And I do think you can learn so much from clients. And I found it so rewarding to work with people. But there was some part of me that just felt complete around that and felt like I actually want to spend every waking minute either building systems in the back end or creating IP. And I don't even do a lot of article writing or anything, just creating my 2 podcasts, and that's it. I mean, so a hard decision is that when things are lean the way they are now, because I did hybrid publishing with this book, which means I don't get an advance. I am the advance. Like I am the venture capitalist of myself for this new direction, including hiring all the editing team, working with the hybrid publisher, and printing all the books. So it's a tough decision. Oh, well, easy money is let me just fill up a day a week with coaching again. But I really feel strongly that it's just, I don't want to leverage my time as the crutch to make more money. And I think it would be easy to do, but I would rather keep taking the harder path of we're really, really, really working on my business or in creating content, and not just sort of by default filling my time in order to pay the bills, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So throughout that process and throughout making those tough decisions and knowing that there could be maybe a path of least resistance, but you choose a different path, what have you learned about yourself that you hadn't necessarily discovered before?
Oh, such great questions. Well, I will say that, it's just so interesting, this idea of money. And I'm always trying to remember, think of money as a game and money as energy. Just again, the words on your shirt say flow and love. It's like the perfect reminder for this whole conversation that I really do believe, especially if you're a business owner, and that we can tap into a collective consciousness and be in flow with that and create with love for the collective. And that money flows around that. It's kind of a game and it's a challenge. Like I don't take lack of money personally, or as I called it on my podcast, like when the financial tides recede. I think that's very normal. Just like the ocean has tides, and there's waves on your shirt. The financial tides are going to recede. And then there are times where they're going to surge and be really flush, just like the broader markets. Something I learned about myself is how committed I was with free time to go all in on a creative vision. I did not spare a dollar. For the first time, and I wanted to know at least once in my life that my creative vision was not a compromise, because typically with publishers, my first 2 books, usually the end product is a compromise of sorts. You can get the editorial really strong, but the cover, it's okay. And there's not really design elements because they have their P&L to think about and the bottom line. And with free time, I really just took a risk of what's it like if I fully go all in on a creative vision. Will it pay off? I don't know. But the thing I learned about myself is I'm willing to try.
Ah, beautiful. That's so good. And, as we transition into free time here in just a moment, one of the things that I was going to mention to you, and I'll go ahead and mention it right now, but I wanted to praise you a bit around the look and the feel of free time. The first thing that I noticed when it showed up on my doorstep was the weight of the book.
Oh, cool.
Right. So that was the first thing. The colors, the way that you chose very pleasing colors. I love the ribbon bookmark. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. See the ultimate nod to functionality, practicality.
Absolutely. And it just, it's so present in
Thanks.
every page of the book. So I want to praise you on that, because so many people will open a book and start to read it, and all they're really looking at, paying attention to, are the words, which obviously the message is important. What you're sharing is important. That's the knowledge we want to gain and then apply. I look holistically at what I'm holding in my hands. What does this book mean to me? How does it make me feel? What is the voice that you're using as you're writing and as you're speaking to me? And there's so much that was intentional about this that comes through if you are eyes wide open looking at it. So I wanted to praise you on that and acknowledge you and let you know how much I appreciate it. And I know many others
Oh my
are as
goodness.
well.
Thank you so much. I that means the world to me. And yeah, it's all intentional. It's I think so many business books, especially about systems, are incredibly boring and dry. And I have this passion to democratize systems thinking. Like, it doesn't have to be this drag a lot of people feel allergic to. And so just like you described, I actually wanted you to feel something. When you look at the cover, I want you to feel delighted, just like I want you to feel delighted while you're running your business. And as for the color, I hardly do any videos of any of these interviews on videos. I have to show you something fun bonus, which is, I live in New York City. Here's the Joe coffee mug that I saw sitting on a table in the Upper West Side. And I just go, what is that? And I plucked this. It was somebody's trash, plucked it off the counter. And I said, I don't know what that blue is, but I have to have it, and this became Free Time Blue, is Joe Blue. So sorry, Joe, that we stole your color. And like, look at the branding of these bags. Like, so here's the Joe coffee bag, and the color, it just made my heart sing. And so I had that. I had the symbol of a heart and the flying dollar, the emoji of a flying dollar. And that's what I gave to the brand team. I just said, I don't know why, but these little things really make me happy. And so in the book, even that emoji is in the front flap where you see the price. Yes. Normally you would not have an emoji right there, but we had a lot of fun with all those little creative touches.
That's so cool.
That's the very first show and tell of the Joe coffee mug. Yeah, you got it.
There we go. All right, Joe, if you're listening right now, all we can say is thank you.
Thank you. And sorry. Yeah.
Thank you for the inspiration. Beautiful. So, share with us a little bit about Michael. So I've heard a little bit of the story. You met Michael, you pass each other on the street. How did you meet and what happens next?
Oh, yeah. Well, it starts with everybody telling me I was perpetually, chronically single. And if I wasn't single, this is through most of my 20s, then I was in a really unhealthy relationship. I got catfished before it was a phrase. I was with a sociopath, a narcissist, like you name it. I fell for it/him. So then I was just single for a while, and everyone was telling me, you have to get online. You got to do these apps. It's a numbers game, JB. It's a numbers game. But I'm too introverted for that. Like, I couldn't stand just the pounding the pavement aspect, or the spray and pray of a zillion bad dates. Like, I was always wishing I was just home reading a book. And so I did, in fact, meet Michael walking down the street, opposite directions. I was wearing overalls. He and his friend were looking for overalls because he's a painter and a fine artist. And here's this handsome 6'2" man that just mouths the word. He mouths it. He didn't say it, but he mouthed the words, nice overalls. And as he passed me, then I turned my head. I said, thank you so much. He and his friend yelled from now halfway down the block, oh, where did you get them? We're looking. And we came back together and started talking. And I have to say, it's just one of those moments where I felt redeemed, that I had been wondering if there was something wrong with me, and my love of serendipity and stubborn commitment to it was just a personality flaw that I needed to go to therapy for. And now that may still be the case, but the fact that that is how we met felt very redeeming. That I always used to say, serendipity is my dating strategy. I do real life Tinder. And so it's fun and it means a lot, but that's actually how we met. And then, yes, now we're married. So I think 5-6 years later.
Terrific. Thank you for sharing that story. I appreciate it. I always find that very interesting to learn how two different people come together. And what are those initial conversations like? And I love that. So in your home, how do you mix the way that you look at putting systems and processes together and simplifying things and always looking for a better way and solutions? How does that blend into what happens in the home versus in the business? How does that work with you and Michael, and how
Yeah.
things
Well,
translate at home?
I think it's all part of systems design. And what I found was that given that every other systems book is written by men, except one, Donella Matthews wrote a book called Thinking in Systems, but maybe 20 others that are the most popular in the canon of systems books are written by men. And in almost every case, they have a partner at home who's taking care of things at home. Michael and I don't have that. Like neither of us are, we don't have kids, but neither of us are the stay-at-home parent or the house partner that just wants to take care of house stuff. So together we need to solve those issues. It's not a given, and we don't have these like typical gender roles, even though he comes from a society that would be it would be an insult if a man would touch the dishes or touch the laundry where he's from. So that's been really interesting because I have no interest in like running the home and the business. What that means is that I hate to fight about stuff that's happening at home. So we just try to put our heads together and we just go, okay, I say in the book, transcend tug of war. Like whenever there's a tug of war, a power struggle, there's got to be what my friend Christine calls a sacred third solution. What if we just shift the paradigm altogether? How can we solve this? And so that's how we approach the house, is just, and I say it in the book, stress is a systems problem, but it happens at home too. Like I actually think solving business challenges is so much more rewarding, whereas like solving house challenges is just annoying. Like I don't know who wants to do them. Does anybody enjoy doing laundry? I guess a few people. And of course, the mindfulness saying chop wood, carry water. Like we could all learn to just love the dishes and love wiping the floors. But on some level, I would rather just solve it and not have it create friction. So, and interestingly, he's become more and more aware. He's an artist. He's been creative his whole life, but also as he's been learning more about the way his mind works and having ADHD, a lot of the systems that I put in place are helping him. Like, oh, we always leave our keys in the same place, or we always leave the headphones at a charging station over here. And there are these little rules of thumb. As soon as a product runs out, add it to the Amazon cart or whichever retail offer you're choosing. So we don't forget when it does come time to do the next grocery run or the next when we need to refill things. So a lot of that stuff, it's been interesting to see how helpful it is for him, but it's not the default way that his mind works. He is really spatially creative. He can like solve things that I would never think of.
Very interesting. Well, again, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Kind of give us a little peek behind the curtain of what goes on in the personal life, as well as the amazing things that you're doing outside of the home as well. So
I wish we could know about every business. Like I wish, I know it happens more. I'm really adamant that free time it's for everyone. It's like, sometimes I get a little pigeonholed where it's like, oh, Jenny's a woman, it must be for women. No, it's absolutely not just for women. However, I do think that it's interesting that in women's circles and conferences, there are conversations about what kind of help do you have at home. And I just wish that in the business realm, let's say it's a business book by a really popular author. It's like, who's helping them at home? Do they have a wife? Does their wife work in the business or a partner? Not everyone, it's, genders all over the spectrum now, but like I once went on a kind of business mastermind, and 80% of these very successful business owners had a partner who worked with them in the business in an operational or assistant style role.
80%.
Almost everybody.
That's amazing.
Yes, almost everybody there. And that was fascinating. It was fascinating. So I was like, oh, interesting. Like it's so interesting, these partnerships where the business starts taking off, and one partner can leave the job that they had and now come work in the business. And that's a whole ball of wax, how to juggle it. But I just would find it fascinating to know more about what's happening on the home front and the home logistics. even if the primary topic of conversation is the business.
Yes, absolutely. Talk about opening the conversation and going deeper and really getting to know someone on a different level,
Mhm.
understanding the psychology, understanding
Yeah.
that really would be that would be
And
a
the
great
context.
conversation,
Yeah,
and the context for sure.
oh, yes, I have a miracle morning and it starts at 4 a.m. And it's like, okay, cool. Do you have kids? Do you have dogs? Do you have someone helping? Nothing wrong at all. But what enables those systems? Like that's what I want to know. It's even the things I'm able to do that I was able to do when I was single are so different when I have a husband and a dog. And it would be even way more different if we had kids. So yeah, I find that context to be also very helpful for people to understand how the rest of the systems function.
Absolutely. It has to be part of the equation. So, with all of that said, I would love to jump into free time for a couple of minutes here. And this, of course, we've already referenced this, but this is your third book. You published your first book in 2011, which, by the way, you launched that book or wrote that book, launched it while working for Google. And then your second book in 2016 was Pivot, which introduces a 4-step continuous process for navigating change. So that's plant, scan, pilot, and launch.
Wow. A plus.
Another great book that everyone needs to check out. And we're going to link to that one as well. But today we are excited to talk about Free Time, which is your latest book. And this book introduces, it's really a 3-part free time framework, and it helps us free up time and move from friction to flow. And you've broken the book down into 3 different parts. So we've got align, we've got design, and then we have assign. And every chapter in this book, which what I love about this, and which, by the way, not only did I read the book, but I also have the Audible version
Oh,
of it. So
cool.
I was listening and reading at the same time, and there were some slight differences, right? There was a little bit of added context in the audio book, but still everything seemed to synchronize very well. But what I love about it is this is one of those books that is filled with real, applicable, and practical tools. When I say framework, it truly is a framework, and it walks you through step by step with different types of systems and different ideas and recaps at the end of every chapter. So you really put a lot of time and effort into this. And as I was reading it, I was thinking about you as a coach, and you talking to me, right, one-on-one, just like we're doing right now. And I could feel the coach in you
That's so
coming
cool.
out, because you do it in such a caring, methodical,
Mm.
wanting to help you achieve the results that you're looking for, that is so ever present in the way that
Yeah.
you write. So
Thank
I
you.
would love it if you would share from your perspective of the author. If we take part 1, the align piece of free time, share with us 1 or 2 key areas of align that resonate with you, that you
Mm.
believe would connect well with our audience.
Sure. First of all, wow. Thank you for such a generous recap of the books and this one in particular. I just love hearing your experience of it. Align, let's start by saying there's no need to optimize what shouldn't be done at all. So I love Greg McKeown in Essentialism. There's this diagram that has stayed with me ever since I saw it, where there's one circle with spokes radiating out in every direction. They're kind of short. It looks like a drawing of a sun that a 6-year-old would draw. And then the drawing right next to it is a circle with one arrow that's 5 times as long as the small arrows in the sunshine diagram. This to me is the power of focus and alignment. So whatever is no longer aligned, like there's a quote that I didn't make it up, but I talk about it in the introduction. Are you ordering off of yesterday's menu? Where in your business are you ordering off of yesterday's menu? You're not even seeing the specials that are on today, or the food has gone bad. It's just no longer relevant, whether it's clients, services you're providing, the business model, the pricing, how you're spending your time. Like I do think that there's so much room to pare down and focus. And then the second part about align is get it out of your mind. David Allen says the mind is for having ideas, not holding them.
Mm.
So as soon as you can create what I call an externalized mind, nothing needs to live inside your head. Get it all out, because that's also what creates, we already have enough stress and pressure as it is as business owners. So part of aligning is it freeing your mind. The original structure of the book was mind, time, team. And then I realized that doesn't do anything. That doesn't create transformation. So it became a process: align, design, assign, a sequential process to create free time. However, mind is still that first theme, which is like, get it out of your mind, clear the clutter up there so that you get it down on paper. Other people can then help out, and your mind is free to do what it does best, which is big ideas, creative, strategic thinking.
So good. And again, there's so much detail in each of these sections that really help you better understand and be able to apply these areas into your business and life. And
that's what it's like. Who needs more inspiration? Just tell us what to do. Like, I don't want to be too prescriptive, but like, no. And what I mean by that is this, and then here are the steps, and here's how you can get that. I like to be very functional with it, because the knowing doing gap is real. We can know we should have systems, but then how do you do that? I wanted to just give the entire playbook.
So good. And my audience has heard this many, many times before, but knowledge is only power when we truly apply it. It's great to know the information, but you didn't write this book just to share the ideas and the concepts and theories. This is real life, right? This is what you have experienced, right? This is taking your learnings, putting them down on paper, and encouraging and inspiring your audience to use it, right? Put it into practice and give it a chance and create the outcomes that you're looking for. That's what this is all about. So we're going to go to the second part of the book here in a second, but I did just want to mention this. When I think of essentialism, first of all, another great book, that whole concept is around doing less but better.
Yes.
Right. It's doing less but better. And I can see the through lines here, because there's so much about that you've been able to convey in a very different way with different examples. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you bringing that particular book up, because I can definitely see where we can apply that along with the framework that you have created here, which ultimately creates free time for us.
Well, that's it. Like the promise of the book is free time. So in no way am I trying, I would just be taking your time if you read it and nothing changed. And I think the mark of a good system is you can't help but use it. Like if you read this book, like you can't help but free many hours a week, you almost can't help it. That's the whole point. It's like, got to deliver. It's absolutely meaningless if somebody just reads the book and feels good, but nothing changes.
So true. So true. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
That's right.
There you go. So let's talk about part 2, which is design. So share a little bit about part 2 and maybe a couple pieces of information that our audience can take away.
Design is about being really intentional before starting the work or delegating it, even better. Design the ideal impact you want to have, the ideal outcomes of a given project area, and take a step back to design a process for tackling it. Really imagine the process of you and your team working on this. What would be easeful, joyful? If the process feels heavy and constricting and you're dreading it, redesign it. Then stop, take a step back and redesign it. And my biggest sort of Achilles heel of my business is email. And just recently I had an aha moment, this big eureka that I need to train the system, then the person. I had to take a step back yet again with my email. And I created all these automations that will automatically label emails now with the short link to get to an email guide section, not the manager manual, a completely unique standalone guide of how to handle that message and my email inboxes as a whole for the team and my personal. And I don't even have a dedicated person on my team who's only doing email. But if anyone plugs in, now I'm really ready for them. And it has actually tamed the chaos. I went from having perpetually 300 messages in my inbox for years to 8 as of Monday. So train the system, then the person.
That is so good. How do you feel about that?
So good. It just feels so rewarding. And then my team member even wrote to me and said, I love our new system. Like, I can find what I'm looking for. I don't even have to ask you. It's so cool to really experience the palpable excitement of having a breakthrough. And when I say train the system, what I mean is like, you really got to think. It takes creativity. That's why this is to work less in the business is harder. It takes more strategic thinking. But training the system means the system itself gets smarter so that you don't keep repeating yourself, training one person and then the next person, then they leave. And you're like ad infinitum of just repeating yourself. That's one of my pet peeves is repeating myself. So,
I kind of sense that.
Hate it. Feels so pointless. Talk about a waste of time. I'm just saying the same thing. This is a waste of time.
You know what? I get you on that. But if you didn't feel as strongly as you did about it, if it didn't create as much pain for you, then you wouldn't be creating the incredible, right? You wouldn't be creating the solutions that you have created. So it all happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's true. And that any area that creates friction, you actually have a front row seat to solve, because if it came easily, the people who things come easily for, like email or anything else, don't even notice. They can't even put words to their process because it's so automatic.
True. Yeah, I kind of fall into that bucket sometimes, and I have to pause and take a step back and realize that this may be easier for me, but if I truly want to scale and grow my business and help other team members, I have to be able to, I have to document this. I have to be able to share this and get it from here in my mind out onto paper, Google Docs, whatever your method happens to be. So good. So let's go to part 3, which is then assign, which I've got to tell you, this is probably one of the most challenging areas for me personally and professionally, and one that I am constantly working to get better because I know that I can get better.
Yes, me too. Assign is not my natural inclination. I say in the book about the 4 horsemen of the business ambition apocalypse: money, power, fame. Those are what are commonly stated as vices. Then the 4th one is control. That for some reason, the business owner control dynamic, it's real. And the reason that assign is actually part 3 is on purpose. It's meant to be challenging. It's meant to challenge us all to double how much we delegate, and don't stop at just designing a streamlined process. You actually now stage 3, 1/3 of the whole endeavor is to say, how can I get as much of this off my plate as possible? You can assign to software first and foremost to automate, but then I encourage everybody listening to go to the edges of your stretch zone with this. Like, where is it edgy for you to delegate? What are you afraid to let go of? There is going to be a percentage that you hang on to, but I find that for so many of us, we have room to delegate a lot more than we think. Even if I just did an episode on my show about the Scherr strategy, even if you're hiding in the bushes, telling your team member exactly what to do and say, let's say with an important client, that is still a baby step toward getting your hands out of every single part of the business. And the clients might appreciate it too. They know that somebody's there taking care of them, that you're busy. Maybe they don't want to bother you with a question about their invoice or scheduling. They're happy that there's a team member. And so the Scherr strategy is like, okay, fine. So your team member has no clue how to answer the more complicated questions. Great. They're going to ask you in the back channels, you fill them in, and then they communicate it to the client. It's possible.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to continue to work on myself because, like I mentioned, it's definitely an area that I need some help with. But I think that part of the challenge to this is the recognition, the self-awareness piece, because at least once we're aware of it, we've identified it. Now we can do something about it. We can start to work through it. And thank goodness that you have brought this book to life and given us the tools and the tactics and the strategies that we need to get there. So it's fantastic. And for all of you, Free Time is the book that we have been talking about the past few minutes. We're going to link to all the places where you can purchase Free Time, as well as Jenny's other incredible books. As we come to the close of our conversation today, which I could carry on conversations with you for hours. You're just, you're so great.
I got you.
You truly are. So where would you like our audience to go to connect with you?
You can search for Free Time with Jenny Blake, wherever you're listening to this, if you're listening in a podcast app. And you can visit itsfreetime.com/toolkit. That's where you can get all the free tools and templates related to a lot of the concepts we've talked about. And you can also visit itsfreetime.com/BFF if you're interested in learning more about the private community for fellow heart-based business owners.
Wonderful. Well, we'll certainly link to those in the show notes. And, what challenge would you like to give to our audience?
Oh, good question. And the challenge I'm going to give you is to set yourself free. Part of the reason that every chapter of the book has permission, and at the end, there's a permission slip that you can send to a friend, is that I actually think so much of what holds us back is like micro guilt, anxiety, pressure, and shoulds, shiny shoulds, where we think we need to do things a certain way. And so my challenge to you is set yourself free. Oh, like what is holding you back? What's in the way? What are you carrying that you can just set down, set yourself free? And does it really need to happen? So whether it's social media, whether it's a certain email turnaround time or text message turnaround time, what would happen if you just let it go? Is anyone even going to notice? Is anyone even going to care? Maybe, but probably not.
Challenge accepted. My friends, you heard it directly from Jenny. Are you going to take her up on that challenge? I certainly hope that you do. This is a great experience for you to learn and to grow from. So here is my final question to you. What is the most difficult decision that you've had to make in the pursuit of who you've become?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's not that this was difficult, but because I got married later than most of my friends, I can't even say it's late. I have this single self way of working, living being, and now a married self working, living being. And it's very interesting to have such a contrast between the two. And I just noticed that dynamic creative tension, but between what it was like to write a book, run a business, being fully solo, go to every conference I wanted, travel everywhere. And then now we have responsibilities in a family. And I'm sure you do too, Jay, and so many people listening. I think that tension is an interesting one and a dynamic one that I'm always it's like the level of complexity on the dance card just grew, and I don't even have kids. So it's not necessarily a decision, but it's like every day is a decision, and a more complex one about how to allocate my time and energy.
Some deep thinking going on there. I can only imagine. Well, Jenny, I want to thank you so very much. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for not only bringing Free Time to life, but sharing of your story, sharing of your experience, bringing your knowledge to all of us today. And I'm so happy we had the opportunity to do this. And I look forward to continuing to grow together.
Likewise, Jay, really, thank you for such deep, thoughtful questions. It's the highest honor and the greatest joy to create something that can bring me people like you, the serendipity popcorn of a wonderful human and just so thoughtful and generous yourself. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for taking the time. And to everybody who's still here watching or listening, thank you. You made it, as my friend Neil says, to the end of the podcast club. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And for all of you, thank you so very much for watching and for listening. Would you do us a favor? We would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and most importantly, leave us a review. Let us know one or two key takeaways from this particular episode. And when you do that, I promise you this, I am going to reach out to Jenny and I'm going to share those comments with her as well. So thank you for that. And to enjoy more episodes or to learn how Scherr Business Consulting can help your service-based business, all you need to do is visit jscheerbusinessconsulting.com. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, pick up a copy of Free Time, and please apply the lessons learned. And we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care.
Scherr.
J. Scherr Business Consulting.